My name is Magnolia Ashford. Everyone calls me Nola. I'm 19 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I believed I was completely alone in this world. I was wrong. But let me start at the beginning. Let me start with the day I walked out of Bright Hope Girls' Home with $127 in my pocket and everything I owned packed into 2 duffel bags. September 15th, 2004. A Wednesday. The kind of late summer morning in West Virginia where the heat hasn't quite broken and the air sits heavy on your shoulders like a wet blanket. I stood on the front steps of Bright Hope looking back at the 3-story brick building that had been my home since I was 6 years old. 13 years. 4,745 days. I'd counted every single one. Mrs. Henderson, the director, handed me a manila envelope. Inside was my birth certificate, my immunization records, and a form that said I'd successfully aged out of the system. Successfully. Like it was an achievement. Like turning 19 without a family was something to celebrate. She didn't hug me. We didn't do hugs at Bright Hope. "You're on your own now, Magnolia," she said. Her voice wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. She'd said the same words to dozens of girls before me. She'd say them to dozens more after. I picked up my bags and walked down those steps for the last time. The thing about growing up in the system is that you learn not to expect anything. You learn that people leave, that promises break, that family is just a word other people use to describe something you'll never have. My mother's name was Clementine Ashford. I know this because I have 3 photographs of her tucked into a Ziploc bag in my backpack. In 2 of them, she's holding me as a baby. In the 3rd, she's standing in front of a white farmhouse I've never seen smiling at whoever was behind the camera. She vanished when I was 6. One day she was there braiding my hair and singing me songs about bluebirds. The next day, she was gone. The social workers told me she abandoned me, left me at a neighbor's house and never came back. They searched for her, put her name in databases, checked hospitals and shelters, nothing. Eventually, they stopped looking. Eventually, I became just another file in just another cabinet, another orphan in a system full of them. I used to imagine she was still out there somewhere, that she'd lost her memory maybe, that one day she'd remember and come back for me. But 6-year-olds believe in fairy tales. 19-year-olds know better. I had a plan. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was something. I'd take the Greyhound to Charleston, find a cheap room, get a job waiting tables or cleaning hotel rooms, save up. Maybe take some community college classes. It was the same plan 100 other aged-out foster kids had. Most of them were still waiting tables, still in those cheap rooms, still saving up for a future that never quite arrived. But it was all I had. I was walking toward the bus station, my duffel bags cutting into my shoulders when my phone rang. I'd bought the phone 3 months ago with money I'd saved from my part-time job at the library. $23 for the phone, $15 a month for service. I gave the number to exactly 3 people, Mrs. Henderson, my social worker, and the manager at the library. The screen showed a number I didn't recognize. Area code 304. West Virginia, but not Charleston. I almost didn't answer. In my experience, unknown numbers meant bill collectors or scammers or someone trying to sell you something you couldn't afford. But something made me press the green button. "Hello, is this Magnolia Ashford?" A man's voice. Older, professional. "Yes. Miss Ashford, my name is Dalton Quincy. I'm an attorney with Quincy and Associates in Hinton, West Virginia. I represent your grandmother's estate." I stopped walking. Right there on the sidewalk, people flowing around me like water around a stone. "I don't have a grandmother." There was a pause. "Miss Ashford, I understand this must be surprising. Your grandmother, Rosalind Ashford, passed away 3 years ago. I've been searching for you ever since. You weren't easy to find." The world felt like it was tilting. I set down my bags before I dropped them. "I don't understand. I don't have any family. My mother disappeared when I was 6. Nobody ever mentioned a grandmother." "Your grandmother very much wanted to know you," Quincy said, and there was something careful in his voice. something that suggested he knew more than he was saying. She left specific instructions. You're her sole heir, Miss Ashford. She left you her property in Hinton, 160 acres including the family farmhouse. There's also a savings account in your name, $31,400. The air left my lungs. 160 acres, $31,400, a grandmother I never knew existed. Why? The word came out as barely a whisper. Why didn't she ever contact me? Another pause, longer this time. That's not something I can adequately explain over the phone, but I have documents you need to see. Can you come to Hinton? Whenever you're able. The property has been sitting vacant for 3 years. It's yours, Miss Ashford. It's been waiting for you. After he hung up, I stood there on the sidewalk for a long time trying to make sense of what had just happened. A grandmother, property, money, and the question that burned hotter than all the rest: if she knew where I was, why didn't she come for me? The Greyhound to Hinton cost $43. That left me with $84. The bus was half empty. I took a window seat in the back and watched Charleston disappear behind me as we headed south into the mountains. West Virginia is beautiful in a way that hurts. All those green ridges rolling away to the horizon. All those hollers and hidden places where the fog sits heavy in the mornings. It's old land, land that remembers things. I'd lived in this state my whole life, but I'd never really seen it. Not like this. Not from the window of a bus carrying me towards something I couldn't begin to understand. The other passengers dozed or read or stared at their phones. I pressed my forehead against the glass and watched the mountains. I thought about my mother, about the photograph of her standing in front of that white farmhouse. I'd always wondered where that house was. Now I was beginning to suspect I was about to find out. 3 hours later, the bus pulled into Hinton. It wasn't much of a town. Main Street ran about 4 blocks before it turned back into highway. There was a diner called Coulter's, a general store, a post office, a few other buildings that looked like they'd been there since before I was born. The mountains pressed in close on all sides like the town was cupped in the palm of a giant hand. Dalton Quincy's office was above the general store. A narrow staircase led up to a door with his name painted on the frosted glass in gold letters that were flaking at the edges. He was waiting for me. A thin man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and a kind face. The kind of face that had probably delivered a lot of bad news as gently as possible over the years. Miss Ashford. He shook my hand. I'm glad you came. Please sit. His office was small but tidy. Law books lined the shelves. The desk was old oak scarred but well maintained. Everything about the place said this was a man who respected the past. He opened a file. Inside were documents I couldn't begin to decipher. Deeds, tax records, bank statements. Your grandmother purchased the property in 1955, he said. 160 acres including the original Ashford family farmhouse. She lived there her entire adult life. When she died in 2001, her will was very specific. Everything goes to you. But why didn't she ever contact me? Why didn't she come get me when my mother disappeared? Quincy removed his glasses and cleaned them with a handkerchief. A delaying tactic. I recognized it because I'd used the same one myself when I didn't want to answer a question. I can't speak to all of that, he said finally. But I can tell you that your grandmother tried. For many years she tried. The specifics are complicated. I'm 19, not 12. I can handle complicated. He studied me for a long moment. Then he reached into the file and pulled out a photograph. It was black and white. A woman maybe 70 years old standing in front of a white farmhouse with a green tin roof. She was wearing an apron and she wasn't smiling, but there was something fierce in her eyes. Something that said she'd fought a lot of battles and won most of them. And she had my eyes, the exact same eyes I saw every morning in the mirror. That's Rosalind, Quincy said quietly. Your grandmother, taken about 6 months before she died. I stared at the photograph. This woman, This stranger, my grandmother. She looks like me. Yes, the resemblance is quite striking. He pushed a set of keys across the desk, 2 keys on a simple ring. These are for the house. It's about 5 miles outside of town up Ashford Road. You can't miss it. Everything inside is exactly as she left it. I picked up the keys. They were heavy, real solid. There's one more thing. He pulled an envelope from the file. It was yellowed with age, and my name was written on the front in careful, elegant script. She left this for you. She made me promise to give it to you when you came. My fingers trembled as I took it. I'll leave you alone, Quincy said. Take your time. If you have questions, I'll be right outside. After he left, I sat there holding that envelope. It was sealed with wax, an old-fashioned touch, something my grandmother's generation would have done. I broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was the same as on the envelope, careful, precise, the handwriting of someone who'd been taught that how you presented yourself on paper mattered. Dearest Nola, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for that. I wanted so badly to meet you in person, to hold you, to tell you to your face how much I love you. But life doesn't always give us what we want. I've left you the farm. It's been in our family for 3 generations. Your great-grandfather built that house with his own hands. Your mother grew up there, and now it's yours. There are things you need to know. Things about your mother, things about why I couldn't reach you, things about what really happened. I've left you a map. Follow it. Go to the place I've marked. You'll find car 734, and inside car 734 you'll find the truth. I loved you from the moment you were born. I loved you every day of your life, even though I never got to tell you. Remember that, Nola. Whatever else you learn, remember that I loved you. Forever yours, Grandma Rose. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. A map. Car 734. The truth. I didn't know what any of that meant, but I was going to find out. I found a taxi outside the general store. The driver was an older man who didn't ask questions, just nodded when I gave him the address. We drove out of town up into the hills. The road got narrower. The trees pressed in closer. 5 miles became 7 miles, became 10. Just when I was starting to think we'd taken a wrong turn, the driver said, "Here we are." And there it was, the white farmhouse from the photograph, from my mother's photograph. 2 stories with a wide front porch and a green tin roof. A red barn stood about 50 yards away. Behind it all, 160 acres of rolling land stretched toward the mountains. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I paid the driver $15. That left me with $69. He drove away, leaving me standing there in the driveway with my 2 duffel bags, staring at a house I'd seen in my dreams but never believed was real. The first key fit the front door. I turned it slowly, listening to the tumblers click. The door swung inward with a creak that said it hadn't been opened in a long time. The smell hit me first. Dust and age and something else, lavender maybe, very faint, like a memory of a smell rather than the real thing. I stepped inside. The front room was small but tidy, a couch with a faded floral pattern, a rocking chair by the window, a fireplace with a mantel, and on that mantel in a simple wooden frame was the photograph, my grandmother, Rosalind, standing in front of this house. The same photograph Quincy had shown me. I walked closer. She had my eyes, my cheekbones, the same slight cleft in her chin that I'd always hated. Looking at that photograph was like looking at a version of myself 50 years in the future, a version that had lived a whole life I knew nothing about. I searched the house like I was hunting for buried treasure. The kitchen was outdated but clean, dishes still in the cupboards, a calendar on the wall frozen on April 2001. 3 years and 5 months ago. Upstairs there were 2 bedrooms. One was clearly hers, a simple bed with a quilt, a dresser, a nightstand with a Bible and a pair of reading glasses. I opened the dresser drawers carefully like I was intruding on something sacred. Clothes neatly folded, handkerchiefs with embroidered flowers, a jewelry box with a few simple pieces inside, and in the bottom drawer, wrapped in tissue paper, a leather journal. I carried it to the bed and sat down. The first entry was dated January 1st, 1985, the year I was born. Clementine told me today she's pregnant. She won't say who the father is. She's angry with me. So angry, but I can't change the past. I can't undo what happened. All I can do is try to be here for her and for the baby. I turned pages, months of entries about my mother's pregnancy, about arguments, about my grandmother trying to help and my mother pushing her away. September 12th, 1985. Clementine had the baby this morning. A girl, she named her Magnolia. I went to the hospital, but they wouldn't let me in. Clementine told the nurses she didn't want to see me. I stood outside her room for 3 hours. A nurse finally took pity on me and let me look through the window. I saw her, my granddaughter. She's beautiful. She has Clementine's eyes, my eyes. I read faster, skipping ahead. November 1985. I tried to visit again. Clementine moved without telling me. I don't know where she is. I hired someone to find her. He says she's living in Charleston with the baby. March 1986. I found them. I went to the apartment. Clementine opened the door and told me to leave. She said she never wants to see me again. She said terrible things, things I deserved maybe. But seeing Magnolia even just for a moment through that doorway was worth it. The entries went on, years of them. My grandmother trying to find us, trying to help, being turned away again and again. And then February 1991. Clementine is missing. The police came to the house today. They wanted to know if I'd heard from her. Apparently she left Magnolia with a neighbor and never came back. They found my name in some old papers. They asked if I would take custody. I said yes. Of course I said yes, but then they checked records. They said there's a restraining order filed by Clementine 3 years ago. They said I can't have custody. They said I'm not allowed within 500 feet of Magnolia. I tried to explain that I never knew about any restraining order, that I never hurt anyone. But the paperwork is there, official, sealed by a judge. So they took Magnolia to Bright Hope Girls' Home, and I can't do anything about it. My whole body went rigid, a restraining order, 3 years before my mother disappeared, keeping my grandmother away from me. I kept reading. March 1991. I hired a lawyer. He's trying to get the restraining order lifted. He says it's strange. The judge who signed it retired 2 years ago and moved to Florida. We're having trouble tracking him down. June 1991. The lawyer says the case is complicated. That without Clementine here to testify, it's hard to prove the restraining order was issued in error. But I won't give up. Magnolia is at Bright Hope. I know where she is now. I write her letters. I send them to the home. I tell her I love her, that I'm fighting to get her back. July 1991. The letters keep coming back. Return to sender. Address unknown. But I know the address is right. I called the home. They said they have no record of any Rosalind Ashford in their files, that I'm not authorized to contact any of their residents. I don't understand. I'm her grandmother. Why won't they let me through? The entries continued, month after month, year after year. My grandmother writing letters that never reached me, calling a home that claimed not to know who she was, fighting a legal system that kept telling her no. I reached the last entry, May 28th, 2001. The doctor told me today. Cancer, stage 4. He says I have weeks, maybe a month. I asked about treatment. He just shook his head. I'm 76 years old. I've lived a long life. But I'm going to die never having held my granddaughter, never having heard her call me grandma. I've written her 247 letters over the past 16 years. Not one has reached her. I've called lawyers, police, social workers, congressmen. Every door is closed, but I'm leaving her everything. The farm, the money, and I'm leaving her the truth. Maybe she'll find it. Maybe she'll understand that I never stopped fighting, that I loved her every single day of her life, even though we never got to meet. I hope she finds car 734. I hope she finds the answers I couldn't give her in person. I'm so tired. But I can rest now knowing that someday she'll know I loved her. That was the last entry. I closed the journal and sat there on my grandmother's bed in my grandmother's house. 247 letters, 16 years, and I never knew. I cried then. For the first time since I was 6 years old, I let myself cry. Not the quiet, hidden tears I'd learned to cry at Bright Hope, where showing weakness was dangerous, but real gasping sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the grandmother I never knew, for the 16 years we could have had, for all those letters that came back unopened. I cried for my mother, who'd been so angry at her own mother that she'd kept us apart, who'd disappeared and left both of us alone. And I cried for myself, for the 6-year-old who thought nobody wanted her, who spent 13 years believing she was completely alone in the world. When the tears finally stopped, I wiped my face on my sleeve and stood up. The journal had mentioned a map. I searched the room until I found it tucked into the Bible on the nightstand. It was hand-drawn on yellowed paper, a simple sketch of the property, the house, the barn, the woods beyond, and in the woods about a mile from the house an X was marked in red ink. Next to it, in my grandmother's careful handwriting, Car 734, where it all began. I had no idea what that meant, but I was going to find out. The next morning I walked into Coulter's diner with $69 in my pocket and no clear plan beyond finding something to eat. The bell above the door jangled. Every head in the place turned to look at me. It was a small town. A stranger was news, but it was more than that. I could see it in their faces, the shock, the recognition, like they'd seen a ghost. An older woman behind the counter dropped the coffee pot she was holding. It shattered on the tile floor, sending coffee and ceramic shards everywhere. "Sweet Jesus," she whispered. "You're Rose's girl." Everyone was staring now. A whole diner full of people frozen in place, looking at me like I was something they couldn't quite believe. "I'm Magnolia," I said. "Nola. I just inherited my grandmother's property." The woman came around the counter, ignoring the broken coffee pot. She was in her 60s with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, and eyes that looked like they'd seen plenty of hard times but had decided to be kind anyway. "Bertie Coulter," she said. "I own this place, and honey, you look just like your grandma." Just like Clementine, too. At the mention of my mother's name, something inside me cracked open. "You knew my mother?" Bertie's expression softened. "Sweetheart, everyone in this town knew your mama, and everyone knows what happened to her." "What do you mean, what happened to her?" "She disappeared. They never found her." Bertie glanced around the diner, at all those watching faces, made a decision. "Sit down, honey. I'll get you some breakfast, and then we'll talk." I sat at the counter while Bertie swept up the broken coffee pot and poured me a cup from a fresh one. She didn't ask what I wanted, just started cooking. 10 minutes later, she set a plate in front of me. Eggs, bacon, toast, hash browns, more food than I'd seen in one place in months. "On the house," she said when I reached for my wallet. "Your grandma used to sit in that exact spot every Sunday morning for 40 years. Least I can do is feed her granddaughter." I ate while Bertie wiped down the counter, and the other customers gradually went back to their own breakfasts, though I could feel them stealing glances when they thought I wasn't looking. When I'd finished, Bertie refilled my coffee and leaned against the counter. "Your mama didn't just disappear," she said quietly. "She was murdered." The diner noise seemed to fade away. All I could hear was my own heartbeat. "What?" "She found out something she wasn't supposed to know, about Kern Mining, about what they were doing to the water. She was going to testify. And 2 weeks later, her car went off Route 60 and into the New River. They ruled it an accident, but everyone in this town knows better." My chest tightened. "Kern Mining. There was a man at my house yesterday. Thaddeus Kern. He wanted to buy my property." Bertie's face went hard. "I bet he did. That land of yours sits right on the watershed. If you sell to him, he'll have control of the whole valley. Why would he kill my mother over water? Because your mama figured out he was poisoning it, mining runoff going straight into the aquifer. Been doing it for 20 years. People in this town, we got cancer rates 4 times the national average. But Kearns got the sheriff in his pocket, got the judge too, got half the state house in Charleston. So nothing gets done, and people who ask too many questions. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The bell above the door jangled again. An old man walked in. He had to be in his 70s, but he moved like someone who'd worked hard his whole life and wasn't about to stop now. Weathered face, calloused hands, eyes that were still sharp despite his age. He stopped when he saw me, just stopped in the middle of the diner and stared. "Lord have mercy," he said softly. "You're Rosalind's granddaughter." Bertie nodded. "Silas, this is Magnolia Ashford. Nola, this is Silas Hargrove. He was your grandma's neighbor for 40 years. Silas walked over slowly, still looking at me like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. "You have her eyes," he said. "Rose's eyes. She talked about you every single day, you know. Every single day for 16 years. Why didn't she come for me?" The words burst out before I could stop them. "If she knew where I was, why didn't she just come get me?" Silas pulled out the stool next to mine and sat down heavily. "Because they wouldn't let her. Someone made sure she couldn't. Made sure those letters never reached you. Made sure the system kept you apart." "Who?" He exchanged a look with Bertie. She nodded slightly. "Thaddeus Kern," Silas said. "He owned the judge who signed that restraining order. Owned the social workers who kept sending Rose's letters back. Owned everyone who could have helped. Your grandma, she was the only one who knew what Kern was really doing. If she'd gotten custody of you, she would have had legal standing. Could have filed lawsuits, could have blown the whole thing wide open. So Kern made sure you stayed separated, and when your mama started asking questions too well." He didn't finish. Nausea washed over me. "She spent 16 years trying to reach me, and the whole time someone was blocking her because of mine runoff, because of money. Your grandma was a fighter," Silas said. "Toughest woman I ever knew. But Kern, he's got resources she never had, power, connections. She did everything she could, but in the end it wasn't enough. She left me a map," I said. "Told me to find something called Car 734. Do you know what that is?" Silas's eyes widened. Then he smiled. It was a sad smile, but genuine. "Car 734. I should have known Rose would lead you there." He stood up. "I can take you if you want. Tomorrow morning. It's a bit of a hike. I want to go now. It'll be dark soon. Trust me, you don't want to be out in those woods after sunset. Come to your barn tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'll bring my boy Caleb. We'll show you." After Silas left, I sat at that counter trying to process everything I'd learned. My mother hadn't abandoned me. She'd been murdered. My grandmother hadn't ignored me. She'd fought for 16 years to reach me. And the man who'd caused all of it was the same man who'd shown up at my house yesterday, trying to buy my land. I thought about his cold smile, about the 72 hours he'd given me, about the woman in his car watching with frightened eyes. I pulled out my phone and called the number Dalton Quincy had given me. He answered on the second ring. "Mr. Quincy, it's Nola Ashford. I need to know something. That restraining order against my grandmother, is there any way to prove it was fraudulent?" There was a pause. "After 13 years, it would be difficult. Why do you ask?" "Because I think Thaddeus Kern had it fabricated. I think he's the reason my grandmother and I were kept apart." Another pause. Longer. "Miss Ashford, Thaddeus Kern is a very powerful man. If you're going to make accusations like that, you'll need evidence. My grandmother spent 16 years collecting evidence. She told me to find car 734. Do you know what that is?" "I'm afraid not. But Miss Ashford, please be careful. If what you're suggesting is true, then you're dealing with someone very dangerous. He's already killed my mother. I don't think being careful is going to help much." I hung up before he could respond. That night I slept in my grandmother's bed in my grandmother's house and dreamed of letters that never arrived. When I woke up the next morning, someone had been in the house. I knew it the moment I opened my eyes. That animal instinct that tells you when something isn't right. Nothing was obviously disturbed, but the front door was unlocked. I'd locked it before bed. I was sure of it. I searched the house. Nothing seemed to be missing. But then I went to my grandmother's desk in the little room off the kitchen and I saw what they'd taken. The desk had been locked. Now the drawer hung open, the lock forced. Inside had been my grandmother's laptop, an old one, but she'd kept meticulous records. I'd planned to go through it today. It was gone. In its place was a note, plain white paper, block letters written in black marker. Leave town, last warning. I stood there holding that note, feeling something shift inside me. Something had changed, reading those 247 letters, seeing proof that my grandmother had loved me for 16 years. It burned away the fear I'd carried since I was sick. I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. The one who believed nobody wanted her. Who stayed quiet because being noticed meant being hurt. Rose Ashford had fought for me every day of my life. Now it was my turn to fight for her. They'd killed my mother. They'd stolen 16 years from my grandmother. They'd kept me and Rose apart because we were inconvenient. Because we asked questions. And now they thought they could scare me off with a warning note. They were wrong. At 9 a.m. exactly, Silas Hargrove pulled up to my barn in an old pickup truck. A younger man was with him. Early 30s maybe. Same weathered look as his father, but with kind eyes that reminded me of Bertie Coulter. "This is my boy Caleb," Silas said. "He's going to help us." Caleb nodded at me. Didn't say much. Just started loading supplies into a backpack. Water bottles, a flashlight, rope. "How far is it?" I asked. "About a mile through the woods. Your grandmother and I used to go out there sometimes. She'd sit in that old train car and write. Said it helped her think." "Train car," Silas smiled. "You'll see." We hiked into the woods behind my property. The path was overgrown but still visible if you knew where to look. Silas led the way, moving through the forest like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Caleb walked behind me. I could feel him there, a quiet presence, protecting me from what I wasn't sure. After about 30 minutes, the ground started to slope downward. We were heading into a ravine. "Careful here," Silas said. "It gets steep." We picked our way down a rocky slope. At the bottom, a creek ran through. Not deep, but moving fast from recent rain. And on the far side of the creek, partially buried in the hillside, was a train car. Not a whole train. Just one passenger car tilted at an angle, half swallowed by earth and time. The metal was rusted, but I could still see the faded letters painted on the side. C&O line. Car 734. "What is this?" I whispered. "Landslide," Silas said. "Back in 1952. A whole train came through here heading for the coal yards. The mountain gave way, buried 4 cars completely. They dug out 3 of them, but this one was too deep, too dangerous, so they just left it. And my grandmother came here. Your grandmother's daddy worked for the C&O line. He died in this landslide. Your grandmother was 17 years old when it happened. This car, it was the only one they couldn't recover. She used to say her daddy was still in there somehow. That being here made her feel close to him." Silas led us to a small opening in the side of the car. A maintenance hatch rusted through in places but still accessible. "After you," he said. I looked at that dark hole in the side of a buried train car. Every instinct told me not to go in there, that nothing good waited in the dark. But my grandmother had left me a message. Find car 734. Find the truth. So I climbed through. Inside it was bigger than I expected. The car had tilted when it was buried, so the floor slanted at an angle, but there was still room to move around. Caleb passed me a flashlight through the opening. I turned it on. The beam cut through decades of dust and darkness, illuminating a ghost of the past. Passenger seats still intact, covered in grime. Luggage racks overhead, even a few personal items scattered around. A hat, a newspaper from 1952, a child's doll, its face cracked and faded, and at the far end of the car, a wooden box. I made my way toward it, carefully testing each step before putting my weight down. The floor creaked but held. The box was locked, but the lock was old, rusted. When I pulled on it, it came apart in my hands. Inside the box was another box, smaller, metal, and on top of it an envelope with my name. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Dearest Nola, if you found this, you're braver than I ever was. You're standing inside car 734, the place where my daddy died and where I've spent 60 years trying to find peace. I couldn't tell you everything in the first letter. There wasn't space, there wasn't time. But here in this place where so much was buried, I can leave you the truth. In the metal box, you'll find 247 letters. Every letter I wrote to you over 16 years. Every letter that came back. I saved them all. I kept copies. They called me crazy, said I was obsessed, unstable. That's what the report said when they denied me custody, but 247 letters over 16 years. Isn't crazy, Nola. It's love. It's determination. It's proof that I never gave up. Take them, read them, see how much I loved you, how hard I fought, and underneath the letters you'll find documents, medical records, water test results, photographs, everything I collected about what Thaddeus Kern has been doing to this town. Your mother found some of this evidence. That's why they killed her. She was going to bring it to the EPA, was going to testify. I tried to finish what she started, but I'm old Nola, and I'm dying, and they're too powerful for one old woman. But maybe they're not too powerful for you. Take the evidence. Find someone who'll listen. Make them pay for what they did to your mother. To the 47 others who died from Kern's poison. Do what I couldn't do, sweetheart. Get justice. I love you more than words can say. I always have. I always will. Forever yours, Grandma Rose. I set down the letter and opened the metal box. On top was a bundle of envelopes. Thick stack held together with string. I counted them. 247 letters. Every single one stamped, "Return to sender, address unknown." I picked up the first one. The postmark said September 15th, 1985, 3 days after I was born. My dearest Nola, you are 3 days old today. I'm not allowed to see you. Clementine won't let me in the hospital, but I stood outside your window for hours. I saw you. You're beautiful. You have my eyes. I want you to know, even though you can't read this yet, even though you might never read it at all, I love you. I will always love you, and I will never stop trying to reach you. Love always, Grandma Rose. I read letter after letter. Birthdays, Christmases. First days of school that I'd faced alone while my grandmother was writing to me, thinking of me, loving me. November 1987. Happy 2nd birthday, my darling. I sent a gift, a stuffed rabbit. They returned it. But I hope somehow you know I remembered. December 1990. I saw Clementine in town yesterday. She had you with her. You're 5 years old now. So beautiful. I tried to talk to her, she walked away. But I saw you looking at me, Nola. Just for a moment our eyes met. Did you feel it? Did you know who I was? September 1995. 10 years old today. Double digits, as your grandpa used to say. I wonder what you look like now. What you like to do. What you dream about. The letters blurred. Tears streamed down my face, but I couldn't stop reading. June 1999. I got a letter from the lawyer today. The judge denied my appeal again. 14 years, Nola. 14 years I've been trying to reach you. Sometimes I wonder if I should give up, if maybe it's cruel to keep hoping. But then I think about you growing up alone, thinking nobody wants you. And I can't give up. I won't. The last letter was dated May 20th, 2001, 1 week before her final journal entry. My darling Nola, this is letter number 247. I've been counting. 16 years. 247 times I've tried to reach you. I'm dying. The cancer is winning. The doctor says I have days now, not weeks. I'm leaving you everything, the farm, the savings, these letters, and the evidence against Kern. I wish I'd gotten to hold you, to tell you stories, to braid your hair and teach you to bake bread and show you all the places on this land that I love. But I didn't get that, and you didn't either? Someone took that from us. Don't let them get away with it, sweetheart. Don't let them win. You're 19 now, or you will be when you read this. An adult, stronger than I ever was. Fight back. For me, for your mother, for everyone Kern has hurt, and know that every day of your life, every single day I loved you. Forever yours. Grandma Rose. I sat in that buried train car holding 247 letters my grandmother had written to me over 16 years, and I made a decision. They'd taken my mother. They'd stolen 16 years from me and my grandmother. They'd killed 47 people and gotten away with it because they had money and power and no one to stand against them. But they didn't have me. Not yet. I climbed out of car 734 carrying the metal box. Silas and Caleb were waiting. Did you find what you needed? Silas asked. Yes, and I need your help. Whatever you need. I need to know who in this town still has integrity, who can't be bought, because I'm going to bring down Thaddeus Kern, and I'm going to need witnesses. Silas and Caleb looked at each other. Some communication passed between them that I couldn't read. There's an FBI agent, Caleb said. It was the first time he'd spoken directly to me. His voice was quiet but firm. Cordelia Blackwell. She's been investigating Kern for 5 years. My wife died of cancer in 2002. She worked at Kern Mining. I gave Agent Blackwell everything I had. It wasn't enough, but maybe with what your grandmother collected. Where can I find her? Charleston office. But Nola, you need to understand. Kern has people everywhere. If he finds out you're going to the FBI, he'll come for you. Same as he came for your mother. Then I'll be ready. We hiked back to my property. As we emerged from the woods, I saw a black BMW parked in my driveway. Thaddeus Kern was leaning against it, arms crossed, waiting. My 72 hours were up. Thaddeus Kern stood in my driveway like he owned it. Like he owned everything he looked at. He probably thought he did. I walked toward him with the metal box under my arm. Silas and Caleb flanked me, silent and solid. I could feel the weight of 247 letters inside that box, the weight of 16 years of my grandmother's love. It made me braver than I had any right to be. Miss Ashford, Kern's voice was smooth, too smooth, like oil on water. Your 72 hours are up. Have you reconsidered my offer? No. His smile didn't reach his eyes. That's unfortunate. I'm prepared to increase my offer. 200,000. The property isn't for sale. Everything's for sale, Miss Ashford. It's just a matter of finding the right price. He pushed off from the BMW, took a step toward me. Or the right motivation. Silas moved slightly, positioning himself between us. Kern noticed. His eyes flicked to the old man, then back to me. Making friends already, I see. That's good. Small towns are all about community. Of course, your grandmother had friends too. Didn't help her much in the end, did it? The threat was barely veiled. I felt Caleb tense beside me. My grandmother died of cancer, I said carefully. Natural causes. Cancer is a terrible thing. Kern's voice was all sympathy. Fake as a $3 bill. We have a lot of it in this area. Environmental factors, probably. All the more reason to accept my offer and move somewhere healthier. I'm not going anywhere. His expression hardened. The mask slipped just for a second, and I saw what was underneath. Cold calculation. The look of a man who'd done things he'd never lose sleep over. You should reconsider. This town has a way of being unwelcoming to people who don't fit in. Ask your mother. Oh wait, you can't. She's been missing for 13 years. The words hit like a slap. Silas's hand gripped my shoulder, steadying me. Get off my property, I said. My voice quavered, but I didn't care. Now, Kern smiled again. I'll give you 1 more week. After that, my lawyers will file a claim on the mineral rights. Turns out there was a lease signed back in the 80s. By your grandmother. We'll tie this up in court for years, Miss Ashford. You'll spend every penny of that inheritance fighting me, and you'll still lose. He got in his BMW. The woman in the passenger seat, his wife, I assumed, didn't look at me. just stared straight ahead, her face carefully blank. As the car pulled away, I saw her glance back once, just once, and in that brief moment I saw fear. After Kern left, we stood in the driveway without speaking. The silence stretched until Caleb finally broke it. "He's going to come after you. You know that, right?" "I know. My wife tried to fight him, tried to report what was happening at the mine. They fired her, blacklisted her. She couldn't get work anywhere in the county. The stress, the fear, it ate at her. When the cancer came, she gave up, stopped fighting. She was gone in 6 months." I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time, saw the grief carved into his face, the anger buried underneath. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry, just be smart. Kern doesn't fight fair. He'll use every weapon he has. Legal, illegal doesn't matter to him." "Then we'll have to be smarter." I held up the metal box. "My grandmother spent 16 years collecting evidence. It's time someone used it." Silas gestured toward the farmhouse. "Let's get inside. We need to see what Rose left you." We spread the contents of the metal box across my grandmother's kitchen table. 247 letters in one stack, and underneath them the evidence. Medical records, dozens of them. Death certificates, all from Hinton and the surrounding area, all from the past 20 years. I read through them slowly, my stomach churning with each name. Marcus Webb, age 42, kidney cancer, worked at Kern Mining for 15 years. Patricia Donaldson, age 38, leukemia, lived half a mile from the mine. William Brennan, age 51, liver cancer, drank from a well that tested positive for heavy metals. The list continued relentless. 47 names in total. 47 people who died too young, too fast, all with cancers that the medical records described as aggressive and unusual. "My God," I whispered. 47 people. "That's just the ones your grandmother could prove," Silas said. "There are probably more." Underneath the medical records were water test results. My grandmother had tested the creek that ran through her property, the wells in the area, even samples from the New River. Arsenic levels 400% above EPA limits. Mercury, lead, a dozen other heavy metals that had no business being in drinking water, and every single sample was dated and documented. My grandmother had been methodical, scientific. She'd built an airtight case. "Why didn't she take this to the EPA?" I asked. "Why just collect it and hide it?" Silas pulled out another folder. "Because she did take it to the EPA, multiple times." Inside were copies of letters my grandmother had sent. 23 letters over 15 years addressed to the Environmental Protection Agency. Detailed reports of the contamination, requests for investigation, pleas for help, and responses, form letters mostly, acknowledgement of receipt, assurances that the matter was being reviewed, but no action, no investigation, nothing. "How is that possible?" I demanded. "This is federal. The EPA is supposed to protect people." "The EPA is made up of people," Caleb said quietly, "and people can be bought. Your grandmother documented that too." He pulled out a thin folder I hadn't noticed before. Inside were financial records, bank statements, a private investigator's report from 2002. The investigator had tracked payments from a shell company owned by Kern Mining to 2 EPA regional officials. $200,000 total spread over 5 years. Delivered as consulting fees for environmental impact assessments that conveniently found no problems with Kern's operations. There were more payments. To a state senator, to a county judge, to the sheriff. "Judge Malcolm Harrison," I read aloud. "He signed my grandmother's restraining order." "And received $30,000 from Kern the same month," Silas confirmed. "Your grandmother put it together. Kern needed her silenced. If she'd gotten custody of you, she would have had legal standing as a parent, could have filed lawsuits on your behalf, made noise that couldn't be ignored. So Kern had the judge issue a fraudulent restraining order, kept you separated." I thought about my grandmother, spending 16 years writing letters that came back unopened, fighting a system that was rigged against her from the start, and all because one man wanted to keep poisoning people for profit. "My mother," I said. "What happened to her?" Caleb and Silas exchanged glances again. That same silent communication. "Show her," Caleb said finally. "She deserves to know." Silas pulled out the last folder, the thickest one. Inside was a police report from February 2001. My mother's car had gone off Route 60 through the guardrail and into the New River. She was 29 years old. The report said she'd been driving too fast, lost control on a curve, died on impact. Case closed. Accidental death. But underneath the police report was the private investigator's file. Photos of the accident scene. The guardrail showed impact damage, but the investigator had noted something the police hadn't. The paint transfer on the rail didn't match my mother's car. Someone had hit her, forced her off the road. There were witness statements the police had never followed up on. A trucker who'd been behind my mother on Route 60. He'd seen a black SUV tailgating her, saw it accelerate just before the curve, saw the impact. He'd given his statement to the police, but it had been filed away, ignored. The investigator had tracked down the trucker 2 years later. Got a recorded statement. The man described the SUV in detail, even remembered part of the license plate. The investigator had traced that plate. The SUV was registered to a shell company, the same shell company Kern Mining used for its consulting payments. "They murdered her," I said. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. "They ran her off the road and murdered her." "Your mother had started asking questions," Silas said gently. "She worked for the railroad. Her route went past the mine. She'd seen things. Illegal dumping, contaminated runoff going straight into the river. She'd taken photos, was planning to go to the State Environmental Board." Kern found out. 2 weeks later, she was dead. I stared at my mother's death certificate, at the police report that called it an accident, at the evidence my grandmother had collected proving it was murder. Why didn't Grandma Rose take this to the police, to the FBI? "She tried," Caleb said. "She went to the local police. Sheriff Wade told her she was grief-stricken, seeing conspiracies where there were none, suggested she talk to a therapist." "Sheriff Wade, who receives $20,000 a year from Kern Mining," I said, looking at the financial records. "Exactly. She tried going over his head, state police, but Kern's reach goes that far too. The investigator she hired, he told her to go federal, to the FBI. She was planning to, and then the cancer came." I closed the folder, pushed it away, needed a moment to breathe. My mother hadn't abandoned me. She'd been killed for trying to do the right thing. My grandmother had spent her last years trying to get justice, dying alone, knowing she'd failed. And the man responsible was outside my door yesterday trying to buy the evidence for $200,000. "We're going to the FBI," I said. "Tomorrow, first thing." "Charleston office is 2 hours away," Silas said. "I'll drive you." "Kern's going to know," Caleb warned. "The moment you walk into that building, he'll know. He has people watching, people who report back. Let him know. I'm done hiding. I'm done being afraid." That night I couldn't sleep. I sat at my grandmother's kitchen table reading her letters by lamplight. Letter after letter. 16 years of love poured onto paper. 16 years of a grandmother reaching out to a granddaughter who never knew she existed. September 15th, 1990. Happy 5th birthday, sweet girl. I bought you a book, Where the Wild Things Are. I remember reading it to your mother when she was your age. I hope somehow, someday I get to read it to you. December 25th, 1994. Merry Christmas, Nola. I put up a tree this year. Hung stockings, one for me, one for you. Yours is still waiting. June 3rd, 1998. School's out for summer. I wonder what you're doing. If you're swimming, playing, making friends. I hope you're happy, baby girl. I hope someone is taking care of you. Each letter was a window into my grandmother's heart, into the life we could have had together. I thought about bright hope, those 13 years of metal beds and group showers and feeling like nobody wanted me, all while 5 miles away my grandmother was writing letters, setting a place for me at Christmas, loving me with every breath. The injustice of it burned. At 2 in the morning, I heard something outside. A vehicle, moving slowly. No headlights. I turned off the lamp and moved to the window, careful, staying back from the glass. A truck was idling at the end of my driveway, dark shape, engine running, someone in the cab watching the house. I reached for my phone, called Silas. He answered on the first ring. "Nola, what's wrong?" "Someone's outside watching the house. Don't go out. Don't turn on lights. I'm 5 minutes away." "Should I call the police?" "The sheriff works for Kern. Remember, calling him would just let Kern know you're scared." "I'm not scared. I'm angry." "Good. Stay angry. I'll be right there." I watched from the window. The truck sat there for another 3 minutes. Then the engine revved and it drove away. No hurry. Just a slow cruise back toward town. A message. "We know where you are. We're watching." Silas arrived 4 minutes later. Caleb was with him, both of them armed. "Did you see what kind of truck?" Silas asked. "Too dark. But it wasn't just driving past. It stopped. Waited. They're trying to scare you. Make you think twice about going to the FBI. It's not working." Caleb checked the perimeter of the house, came back shaking his head. "No signs of tampering, but you shouldn't stay here alone tonight." "I'm not leaving. This is my house." "Then we're staying." Silas settled into a chair by the window. "Caleb and I will take shifts. You get some sleep." "I can't sleep." "Then read your grandmother's letters. But we're not leaving you alone. Not tonight." So I sat at that kitchen table with 2 men I'd known for less than 48 hours, both willing to protect me because I was Rosalind Ashford's granddaughter. Because in this town that meant something. The sun came up at 6:15. I made coffee. We ate breakfast in silence, all of us too aware of what the day ahead meant. At 7:30, Silas's phone rang. He listened. His face went gray. "We'll be right there." He hung up, looked at me and Caleb. "That was Bertie. Someone torched her diner last night, burned it to the ground." We drove into town. Smoke was still rising from the ruins of Coulter's diner. Bertie stood across the street wrapped in a blanket someone had given her. Her face was streaked with soot and tears. The fire department was still there. Sheriff Wade, too, taking statements with all the concern of a man filling out paperwork before lunch. I walked up to Bertie. She looked at me and I saw it in her eyes before she spoke. "This is because of me," I said. "This is because of Kern." Her voice was steady despite the tears. "I've owned this place for 40 years. 40 years. He burned it down in one night. Did anyone see anything? Sheriff says it was probably faulty wiring. Old building. These things happen." The bitterness in her voice could have stripped paint. I looked at Sheriff Wade. He was talking to a firefighter, nodding along writing notes, playing his part perfectly. "We're going to make him pay for this," I said. "All of it." Bertie gripped my hand. "Your grandmother said the same thing. For 16 years she said it. Be careful, honey. Kern doesn't leave loose ends." We spent another hour in town, helping Bertie, listening to neighbors express sympathy while carefully not saying anything about Kern. Fear hung over Hinton like fog. Everyone knew who was responsible. Nobody dared say it out loud. As we were leaving, a woman approached me, late 60s, nervous eyes. She glanced around before speaking. "You're Rose's granddaughter?" "Yes. My husband died in 1999. Lung cancer. Never smoked a day in his life. He worked at the mine for 23 years. She pressed a piece of paper into my hand. "This is his death certificate. His medical records. I heard what you're trying to do. If you need witnesses, if you need people to testify, you call me." She walked away before I could respond. I unfolded the paper. Linda Morrison. A phone number. And underneath in shaky handwriting, "Make them pay." "It's starting," Silas said quietly. "People are ready to talk. They've been waiting for someone brave enough to listen." We drove to Charleston. 2 hours through mountains that looked different in daylight, less threatening, almost beautiful. The FBI field office was downtown, modern building, American flag out front, security at the entrance. We walked in carrying my grandmother's metal box, 16 years of evidence, 47 deaths, proof of corruption that went all the way to federal officials. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" "I need to see Agent Cordelia Blackwell. Tell her it's about Kern Mining. Tell her I have evidence of 47 murders." Her eyes widened. She picked up the phone. 10 minutes later, we were sitting in a conference room with Agent Cordelia Blackwell. She was in her early 40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor, the kind of person who'd heard every story and believed none of them until she saw proof. "You said murders," she began. "That's a serious accusation." I opened the metal box, started laying out documents, medical records, death certificates, water tests, financial records showing bribes, the private investigator's report on my mother's death. I talked for 30 minutes straight, told her everything, about my grandmother, about the 16 years of letters, about Kern's systematic poisoning of an entire community. Blackwell didn't interrupt, just took notes, asked occasional questions. Her expression gave nothing away. When I finished, she sat back. "Miss Ashford, I've been investigating Kern Mining for 5 years. We've suspected environmental crimes, maybe racketeering. But we've never been able to make anything stick. Witnesses recant, evidence disappears. It's like fighting smoke. My grandmother documented everything for 16 years. It's all here. Your grandmother wasn't a trained investigator. A defense attorney would tear this apart. Chain of custody issues, lack of official verification, hearsay." My hope deflated. "But," Blackwell continued, "it's a starting point. The financial records showing payments to EPA officials, if we can verify those, that's federal corruption. That's something I can work with. The water contamination, if current tests match your grandmother's results, that's an ongoing environmental crime. We can build a case. How long will that take? Months, maybe a year. We'll need to conduct our own tests, interview witnesses, verify the financial trail, build something that will hold up in court. Kern burned down a diner last night. He's threatened me twice. How many more people have to die while you're building your case?" Blackwell's expression softened slightly. "I understand your frustration, but if we move too fast, if we arrest Kern on what we have right now, he'll walk. His lawyers will get everything thrown out, and then he's untouchable. We need to do this right. What do you need from me?" "Everything in this box. I'll have it copied and return the originals to you. I'll need you to write out a full statement. Everything you know. Everything your grandmother documented. And I'll need you to stay available. When we're ready to move, I may need you to testify. I'll do whatever it takes. Miss Ashford, there's something else you should know. If Kern finds out you've come to us, you'll be in danger. Real danger. I can't provide protection unless I can prove an imminent threat. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay?" I thought about my grandmother's farmhouse, about Bertie's diner still smoking, about my mother's car at the bottom of the New River. I'm not running. That house is mine. My grandmother left it to me. I'm not letting Kern chase me away from it. Blackwell nodded slowly. "Then be careful. Very careful. Don't confront him. Don't give him any reason to act against you, and if anything happens, anything at all, you call me immediately." She gave me her card. Her direct number was written on the back in pen. We left the FBI office at 2 in the afternoon. The drive back to Hinton felt longer, heavier. "She's going to help," Silas said. "It's a start. It's not enough. Months," she said, "maybe a year. How many people will Kern hurt in that time?" Neither of them had an answer. We were 20 miles from Hinton when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello." "Miss Ashford," Thaddeus Kern's voice, cold, controlled. "I heard you took a little trip to Charleston today, sightseeing." My blood ran cold. Blackwell had been right. He had people everywhere. "I don't know what you're talking about. Let me be very clear. You're playing a game you don't understand, with stakes you can't afford. What happened to Bertie's diner was unfortunate. Old buildings, fire hazards, but these things can happen to houses too, farmhouses, especially ones as old as yours." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you, for your own safety. This town isn't safe for people who ask too many questions. Ask your mother." "Oh, that's right. You can't." The line went dead. My hands trembled so violently the phone almost slipped. Silas pulled the truck over. "What did he say?" I told them, word for word. Caleb's jaw was tight. He's escalating. The FBI visit spooked him. Good, let him be spooked. Nola, he just threatened to burn down your house with you in it. That's not something to take lightly. I'm not taking it lightly, but I'm also not backing down. We got back to Hinton at 4:30. As we turned onto my road, I saw smoke. My heart stopped, but it wasn't my house. It was my barn. The big red barn my great-grandfather had built, the one that had stood for 3 generations. It was engulfed in flames. Fire trucks were already there. Neighbors stood watching. Sheriff Wade was talking to the fire chief, shaking his head sadly. I got out of the truck and ran toward my property. The heat was intense. The firefighters were spraying water, but it was already too late. The barn was gone. Sheriff Wade saw me, walked over with that same sympathetic expression he'd probably used with Birdie. Miss Ashford, terrible thing. Looks like it started in the hay storage. One spark, an old dry hay like that, it goes up like kindling. This wasn't an accident. Now I understand you're upset, but let's not jump to conclusions. We'll investigate thoroughly. But preliminary assessment says this was just bad luck. Bad luck, like Birdie's diner was bad luck. His expression didn't change. Miss Ashford, if you're suggesting someone deliberately set this fire, that's a serious accusation. Do you have any evidence? Thaddeus Kern called me an hour ago, threatened me, said old farmhouses can burn just like diners. Did he specifically say he was going to burn your barn? He implied it. Implications aren't evidence. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an investigation to conduct. He walked away. I stood there watching my barn burn, and I understood what my grandmother had faced for 16 years. A system designed to protect the powerful, to dismiss the weak, to make you feel crazy for seeing what was right in front of you. But I had something my grandmother hadn't had. I had proof. I had the FBI. And I had 47 families who'd been waiting for someone to fight back. That night, Silas and Caleb stayed at my house again. We sat at the kitchen table planning. He's trying to scare you off, Silas said. Make you sell and leave town. It's not working. Then he'll escalate again. The barn was a warning. Next time it might be the house. Let him try. I'm not leaving. Caleb had been quiet. Now he spoke. There's something you should know. Something your grandmother found but couldn't prove. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo, a cemetery, rows of graves. Hinton Cemetery, Section C. Your grandmother took me there 2 weeks before she died, showed me something. He scrolled to another photo, a grave marker. My wife, Rebecca Hargrove, died December 2002, age 32. Another photo, another grave. Marcus Webb, died March 1997, age 42, worked at the mine. He kept scrolling, grave after grave, 47 in total. They're all buried in the same section. All died within 20 years. All died of cancer. Your grandmother mapped it out, called it the Kern Mining Memorial Garden, because that's what it is, a graveyard full of people Kern killed. I stared at the photos, at all those names, all those lives cut short. Take me there, I said. Tomorrow. I want to see it. Why? Because Agent Blackwell needs witnesses. Families willing to testify. And I'm going to ask every single one of them. The next morning we drove to Hinton Cemetery. Section C was on the east side. 47 graves spread across maybe a quarter acre. Someone had planted flowers, not recently, but the graves were maintained, remembered. I walked among them slowly, reading names, dates, ages. Sarah Morrison, 1951 to 1999, beloved wife and mother. William Brennan, 1949-2000, gone too soon. Patricia Donaldson, 1965-2003, forever in our hearts. And there, near the center of the section, was my mother's grave. Clementine Ashford, 1972-2001, taken from us, never forgotten. I knelt in front of it. Someone had left fresh flowers, recent, within the last few days. Who did this? I asked. Birdie, Silas said softly. She comes every week. Your mother was like a daughter to her. I touched the gravestone, cold marble, my mother's name carved into it. I'm going to make them pay, I whispered. I promise. A voice behind me. We all want that. I turned. 5 people were standing there. 2 women, 3 men, all around my mother's age, all watching me with expressions that mixed grief and hope. We heard Rose Ashford's granddaughter was asking questions. One of the women said, "I'm Linda Morrison. My husband Tom is buried 3 rows over. Your grandmother came to see me. Told me she was collecting evidence, asked if I'd be willing to testify someday." I said yes, she continued. Told her I'd testify to anything if it meant bringing Kern down, but she died before anything happened, and I thought that was it, that nobody would ever care. The others nodded, introduced themselves. Each one had lost someone, husband, wife, parent, child, all buried in Section C, all killed by Kern mining. "Agent Cordelia Blackwell with the FBI is investigating," I told them. "She needs witnesses, people willing to go on record, to testify in court. It won't be easy. Kern will fight back. He'll try to discredit you, threaten you, make your lives hell." "He already made our lives hell," Linda said. "He killed my husband. I'm ready to fight." "Me too," said another, and another. By the time we left the cemetery, I had 12 names. 12 families willing to testify. 12 people who'd been waiting for someone to ask. I called Agent Blackwell from the cemetery parking lot. "I have witnesses, 12 of them, families of victims, all willing to go on record." "That's good. That's very good. But Miss Ashford, you need to be careful. The more visible you make this, the more dangerous Kern becomes. He already burned my barn, threatened my house. I don't think I can be more of a target." "You can. Trust me. When cornered men like Kern don't surrender, they attack." "Then let him attack. I'm ready." I hung up, looked at Silas and Caleb. "We need to make this public, force Kern to respond in the open where everyone can see." "How?" Caleb asked. "Town meeting. Tomorrow night. I'm going to stand up in front of everyone and tell them what I know. Show them the evidence. Ask anyone with a dead family member to come forward." "That's suicide," Silas said. "Kern will shut it down. He can try, but this is a public forum. He can't stop me from speaking without showing his hand. He can have Sheriff Wade remove you. Claim you're disturbing the peace. Then it'll be on record. Everyone will see. Sometimes you have to make them show their true face." That afternoon I went to the town hall, filed a request to speak at the next council meeting. The clerk tried to tell me the agenda was full. I put a photo of Bertie's burnt diner on the table. "I'll be speaking about fire safety and environmental contamination and corruption. The people of this town deserve to know what's killing them." The clerk looked at the photo, looked at me, made a phone call. 5 minutes later, I was on the agenda. Word spread fast in a small town. By evening, everyone knew Rose Ashford's granddaughter was going to speak at the council meeting, going to say things people had been thinking but not saying for 20 years. My phone rang that night. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Miss Ashford," a woman's voice, soft, scared. "This is Vivian Kern, Thaddeus's wife." I sat up straight. "Why are you calling me?" "Because I need you to understand. He's dangerous, more dangerous than you know, and tomorrow night if you go through with this, he'll hurt you. Please take his money, leave town, forget all of this." "Your husband killed my mother, killed 47 other people. I'm not forgetting anything. I know what he's done." Her voice broke. "I've known for years. I've had to live with it, watch him destroy families, and I couldn't do anything because I was too afraid." "Then help me. Testify. Tell the FBI what you know." "I can't. He'd kill me. He's killed before. He'll do it again." "Mrs. Kern, just leave, please, while you still can. Rose tried to fight him. Your mother tried. They're both dead. Don't be next." She hung up. I sat there in the dark, holding my phone, thinking about Vivian Kern. About a woman trapped in a life with a monster, too afraid to leave, too complicit to be innocent. Tomorrow night would change everything. I knew that. Kern knew it too. The question was which one of us would still be standing when it was over. The town hall meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. on Thursday. By 6:30, the parking lot was already full. I sat in Silas's truck watching people file into the building. Familiar faces from the diner. strangers I'd never met, all of them coming to hear what Rose Ashford's granddaughter had to say. "You don't have to do this," Silas said for the third time. "You could give everything to the FBI. Let them handle it." The FBI said months, maybe a year. How many more people get sick in that time? How many more fires get set? Caleb was in the back seat silent. He'd been quiet all day. Finally, he spoke. "My daughter is 8 years old. Rebecca died when she was 4. Too young to remember her mother properly, but she drinks the same water, breathes the same air. Every day I wonder if she's being poisoned too. If one day I'll get the same diagnosis Rebecca got." He met my eyes in the rearview mirror. "So, yes, do this. Make them listen. Because some of us have been waiting our whole lives for someone brave enough to speak up." At 6:45, a black BMW pulled into the lot. Thaddeus Kern got out. 3 men in suits followed him. Lawyers, probably. They walked into the town hall like they owned it. Maybe they did. "Last chance to back out," Silas said. I picked up my box of evidence. "Let's go." The meeting room was packed. Every seat taken, people standing along the walls. I recognized Linda Morrison, the families from the cemetery, Bertie Coulter, despite having lost her business, sitting in the front row. The town council sat at a long table up front, 5 people. Mayor Dennis Clark in the center. I'd done my research. Clark had been mayor for 12 years. Before that, he'd worked in middle management at Kern Mining. Kern sat in the back corner, arms crossed, watching. The meeting started with routine business, budget reports, zoning requests. The council members went through the motions, but everyone knew what they were really waiting for. Finally, Mayor Clark cleared his throat. "We have a special speaker tonight. Miss Magnolia Ashford has requested time to address the council regarding environmental concerns." I stood up, walked to the front of the room, set my box on the table. Every eye in the room was on me. The weight of their attention was almost physical. I looked out at all those faces, saw hope, fear, anticipation. And in the back corner I saw Kern, still watching, still waiting. I took a breath and began. "My name is Magnolia Ashford. 3 weeks ago I inherited my grandmother's property. 160 acres just outside town. Before that, I'd never been to Hinton. I didn't even know my grandmother existed." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I kept going. "Rosalind Ashford died 3 years ago. She spent the last 16 years of her life trying to reach me. She wrote me 247 letters. I pulled out the stack, held them up so everyone could see. Every single one came back. Return to sender, address unknown, because someone made sure we couldn't connect. Someone who had a judge issue a fraudulent restraining order. Someone who bribed social workers to reject her calls. Someone who wanted to keep my grandmother silent. I could see people leaning forward now. The council members looked uncomfortable. My grandmother wasn't just trying to reach me. She was trying to expose a crime. A crime that's been going on for 20 years. A crime that's killed 47 people that we know of. I started pulling out death certificates, laying them on the table one by one. Marcus Webb, Patricia Donaldson, William Brennan, Rebecca Hargrove, my mother Clementine Ashford. With each name I saw faces in the crowd react. Recognition, grief, anger, all dead from aggressive cancers, all within the last 20 years. All connected to Kern Mining. Mayor Clark held up a hand. "Miss Ashford, these are serious accusations. I hope you have evidence to support them." "I do." I pulled out the water test results, started reading numbers. Arsenic levels 400% above EPA limits. Mercury, lead, cadmium, all in our water supply, all from mining runoff that Kern Mining has been dumping illegally for 2 decades. "That's outrageous," one of the council members sputtered. "Kern Mining undergoes regular environmental inspections. We've never had any violations. Because the inspectors were bribed." I laid out the financial records, the bank statements showing payments from Kern Mining shell companies to EPA officials. $200,000 to Regional Inspector Marcus Flynn, $150,000 to Environmental Compliance Officer Sarah Bennett. Both delivered as consulting fees. both in the months before major inspections that found no violations. The room exploded into noise. People shouting questions, council members talking over each other. Thaddeus Kern stood up. His voice cut through the chaos like a knife. These are desperate fabrications from a young woman who's been offered a generous sum for her property and refuses to accept market reality. Every head turned toward him. I've tried to help Miss Ashford, he continued smoothly, offered her more than fair value, but instead of accepting, she's chosen to create this conspiracy theory. These so-called financial records are easily forged. The water tests are decades old and unverified, and the deaths she's referring to are tragic, yes, but cancer happens. This is an aging community in an industrial area. Patterns exist, but that doesn't mean causation. He was good, calm, reasonable, playing the rational businessman being attacked by an emotional young woman. I had to give him credit. He'd done this before. You're right, I said. Patterns don't always mean causation. But when my grandmother sent these exact same water samples to the EPA in 2002 and they came back with identical contamination levels, and then the EPA official who received them got a $50,000 payment from your company 2 weeks later and no investigation was ever opened. That's not just a pattern. That's conspiracy. Kern's expression didn't change. Your grandmother was a troubled woman. Everyone in this town knew that. She spent years making wild accusations. It's sad that she's passed those delusions on to you. My grandmother wasn't delusional. She was methodical, scientific. She documented everything. I pulled out the private investigator's report on my mother's death, including the murder of my mother. The room went silent. February 14th, 2001. My mother's car went off Route 60. The police ruled it an accident, but a witness saw a black SUV force her off the road. That SUV was traced to a shell company owned by Kern Mining. My mother died 2 weeks after she told her supervisor she was planning to report illegal dumping to state environmental authorities. This is slander, Kern said. His voice was still calm, but I could hear the edge now. I won't stand here and be accused of murder by someone who's clearly unstable. Then sue me. Take me to court. Let's put all this evidence in front of a judge. Let's have experts verify the water tests. Let's have forensic accountants trace the money. Let's have the FBI investigate. The FBI? Mayor Clark looked alarmed. You've involved federal authorities. I met with Agent Cordelia Blackwell yesterday. She's opening an official investigation into environmental crimes and public corruption related to Kern Mining. The room erupted again. Kern's calm facade cracked. Just for a second, but I saw it. Miss Ashford, Mayor Clark said loudly, trying to restore order. This council is not the appropriate venue for these kinds of accusations. If you have evidence of crimes, you should take it to the proper authorities. I have, but the proper authorities in this town are on Kern's payroll. I looked directly at Sheriff Wade, who was standing against the back wall. Sheriff Wade receives $20,000 a year from Kern Mining, paid through a consulting contract for security services he never actually performs. Judge Harrison, who signed my grandmother's restraining order, received $30,000 the same month. And you, Mayor Clark, worked for Kern Mining for 15 years before becoming mayor. Your campaign was funded almost entirely by Kern family donations. Clark's face went red. That's public information. There's nothing illegal about campaign contributions. There is when it's a bribe, when it's buying silence about mass poisoning, when it's ensuring that people who ask questions disappear. Enough! Thaddeus Kern's voice was cold now, all pretense of civility gone. You're making libelous accusations based on forged documents. My attorneys will be filing suit against you tomorrow morning. By the time we're done, you'll lose that property and everything else you own. I don't own anything except what my grandmother left me, and she left me the truth. That's something you can't take away. I turned back to the crowd. Everyone in this room knows someone who's died of cancer, someone who's gotten sick, someone who's lost a family member too young. You've all wondered why. You've all suspected, but you've been too afraid to say anything. I saw heads nodding, saw people looking at each other. I'm not afraid. My grandmother wasn't afraid, and if you're tired of watching people die, if you're tired of being lied to, if you're ready to fight back, the FBI needs witnesses. They need people willing to testify, to go on record, to stand up and say this has to stop. Linda Morrison stood up. Her voice shook but held firm. My husband Tom died in 1999. Lung cancer. Never smoked. Worked at the mine for 23 years. I'll testify. Another woman stood. My sister, leukemia, age 36. I'll testify. Another. My father, age 54. I'll testify. One by one, people stood up. 12, 15, 20. More than I'd hoped for. Kern watched them stand. His face was stone, but I saw his hand tighten on the back of the chair in front of him. This meeting is adjourned, Mayor Clark said hastily. Miss Ashford, you need to leave now. I'm not done. You are. Sheriff Wade, please escort Miss Ashford out of the building. Sheriff Wade started toward me, but he had to push through the crowd, and the crowd wasn't moving. Bertie Coulter stood up. I got something to say too. My diner burned down 2 nights ago. Sheriff here says it was faulty wiring, but I've owned that building for 40 years, never had an electrical problem, and the fire inspector found traces of accelerant, gasoline. Someone poured gasoline in my storage room and lit it. Wade stopped. Mrs. Coulter, that's under investigation. Investigation my foot. You ruled it an accident in 6 hours, didn't even test for arson because you knew what you'd find. Another voice from the crowd. My barn burned last month. Sheriff said lightning strike, but there wasn't any storm that night. Another. My garage, last year, ruled electrical fire. The pattern was becoming clear. Anyone who challenged Kern, anyone who asked questions, their property burned. Kern stood up again. This time he wasn't calm. This time I could see the rage underneath. You're all making a terrible mistake. This town depends on Kern mining. 400 jobs, 70% of the tax base. You want to destroy that over conspiracy theories, over forged documents from a dead woman who spent her last years ranting about cover-ups. My grandmother wasn't ranting, I said quietly. She was right. Your grandmother was crazy. Everyone knew it. That's why the court issued the restraining order. That's why she couldn't get custody of you. She was unstable, paranoid, and apparently she's passed it on to her granddaughter. Something in me snapped. My grandmother spent 16 years trying to reach me. She wrote me 247 letters, every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone. She never gave up. She never stopped loving me, and you took that from us. You stole 16 years because you wanted to keep poisoning people for profit. My voice quavered with anger, with grief, with rage at everything that had been taken from me. She died alone, thinking she'd failed, thinking I'd never know she loved me. Because of you. The room was silent. Even Kern didn't have a response to that. I've given all the evidence to the FBI, I continued. Agent Blackwell is conducting a full investigation. The EPA is running new water tests. The Justice Department is looking into the bribery. It's over, Mr. Kern. You can't stop it now. Too many people know. Kern stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was the coldest smile I'd ever seen. We'll see about that. He walked out. His lawyers followed. The room erupted into conversation. Mayor Clark tried to restore order, but no one was listening. People surrounded me, asking questions, offering support, telling their stories. Silas and Caleb pushed through to me. We need to get you out of here, Caleb said. Now. That went better than expected, which means Kern's going to respond badly. We made our way to the truck. Adrenaline was draining from my system, leaving me exhausted. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I saw Kern's BMW, parked across the street, him inside on the phone, making calls, giving orders, planning his response. That night, Silas and Caleb both stayed at my house. We took turns keeping watch. No one really slept. At 3 a.m. I heard vehicles outside. Multiple vehicles, moving slow, no headlights. I woke Silas. We looked out the window, 4 trucks parked at the edge of my property, men getting out. I counted 8 of them. Call 911, Silas said. The sheriff works for Kern, remember? Call anyway, get it on record. I called. The dispatcher said they'd send someone, but I knew what that meant. They'd send Wade. He'd take his time getting here, arrive after whatever was going to happen had already happened. The men were spreading out, surrounding the house. One of them was carrying something. A gas can. They're going to burn it, I said, like they burned the barn, like they burned Birdie's diner. Caleb was already on his phone. I'm calling Agent Blackwell. Federal agents can get here in 30 minutes from Charleston if they hurry. We don't have 30 minutes. The men were getting closer. I could see their faces now in the moonlight, not faces I recognized. Outsiders, hired help. One of them pulled out a phone, answered it, listened, looked directly at the house. Then he gestured to the others. They all pulled back, got in their trucks, drove away just like that. No fire, no attack, just gone. What just happened? I asked. Caleb's phone rang. He answered, listened, his face changed. Understood, yes, we're fine. Thank you. He hung up, looked at me and Silas. That was Agent Blackwell. She called Kern, told him federal agents were en route to my property. Told him if anything happened to me, he'd be the primary suspect in a federal investigation. Told him they had surveillance on his phone, that they'd know if he made the call. She was bluffing, Silas said. Probably. But Kern didn't know that. He called off his people. I sat down. The adrenaline was wearing off. Exhaustion hit me like a wave. This doesn't end, does it? He's always going to come after me. Until he's arrested, Caleb said. Until he's in prison, yes. He'll keep coming. Then we need to speed this up, make the FBI move faster. How? I thought about it, about what Kern valued most, what would hurt him the most. His reputation, his standing in the community, his image as a legitimate businessman. I pulled out my phone, started recording. My name is Magnolia Ashford. It's 3:15 a.m. on November 4th, 2004. Tonight, 8 men surrounded my house carrying gasoline. They were planning to burn it down with me inside. They only left when FBI agent Cordelia Blackwell called Thaddeus Kern and told him he was being watched. I kept recording, told the whole story, everything, the letters, the deaths, the evidence, my mother's murder. When I finished, I had a 40-minute video. What are you going to do with that? Silas asked. I'm going to send it to every news outlet in West Virginia, every newspaper, every TV station, the Charleston Gazette, the Register, Channel 3 News, all of them. They won't air it. Kern has connections. He'll shut it down. Maybe, but some reporter somewhere will look at the evidence. We'll see the pattern, we'll start asking questions, and once the media gets involved, Kern can't make it disappear. I spent the rest of the night writing emails, attaching the video, attaching scans of the evidence, sending them to every journalist I could find. By dawn, I'd sent 63 emails. By noon, I'd gotten 5 responses. By 3 p.m., a reporter from the Charleston Gazette was sitting in my living room looking at my grandmother's evidence. Her name was Patricia Reeves, mid-40s, sharp eyes, a recorder on the table between us. This is extraordinary, she said. If even half of this checks out, it's the biggest environmental crime story in state history. It all checks out. The FBI is investigating. Can you get me in touch with Agent Blackwell? I can try, but the FBI might not want to comment on an ongoing investigation. They don't have to. I can verify the deaths independently, pull death certificates, interview families, the water contamination. I can hire an independent lab to test current samples. The financial records will be harder, but I have sources. She looked at me. This is going to make you a target. You understand that Kern will come after you harder than ever. He'll try to destroy your credibility, dig up dirt on you, make you look unstable. I'm 19 years old. I've been in foster care since I was sick. I have no credibility to destroy. All I have is the truth. That might be enough. Patricia Reeves stayed for 3 hours, asked hundreds of questions, recorded everything, took copies of every document I could give her. When she left, she said, I'll have something ready to publish in 2 days. Once it's out, there's no going back. Good. That night, my house phone rang, the landline my grandmother had kept. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Miss Ashford, Vivian Kern's voice again, but different this time, stronger. I saw what you did at the town meeting, what you said about your grandmother, about the letters. Mrs. Kern, I want to help. I want to testify. I sat down. What? I've been married to Thaddeus for 23 years. I know everything. Where the money goes, who gets paid, who gets threatened. I have documents, records he thinks I don't know about. Why now? Why help me? Her voice broke. Because I'm tired. Tired of being afraid. Tired of watching people die. And because of what you said about your grandmother, about the letters, about love that doesn't give up. She took a shaky breath. I had a daughter, 20 years ago. She died when she was 2. Leukemia. The doctors said it was random. Bad luck. But we lived 3 miles from the mine. Drank the same water. Breathed the same air. Mrs. Kern, I'm so sorry. I've suspected for years that the mine killed her, but I couldn't face it. Couldn't admit that my husband's company murdered our daughter, so I stayed quiet. Let other people's children die too. I can't do that anymore. Meet me tomorrow. Bring whatever you have. I'll put you in touch with Agent Blackwell. If Thaddeus finds out, he'll kill me. I'm not being dramatic. He's killed before. He'll do it again. Then we'll protect you. The FBI can put you in protective custody. Okay, tomorrow, 2 p.m., the library in Charleston. He won't look for me there. She hung up. I immediately called Agent Blackwell, told her everything. This is big, Blackwell said. Spouse testimony in a case like this is gold. She'll have access to things we could never get warrants for. But Miss Ashford, you need to be very careful. If Kern suspects his wife is about to turn on him, he might do something desperate. More desperate than sending 8 men to burn down my house. Yes, much more desperate. The next day, Caleb drove me to Charleston. We got to the library at 1:30, wanted to be early, to scope it out. Agent Blackwell was already there. She'd brought 2 other agents. They set up in a study room on the 2nd floor. When Mrs. Kern arrives, we'll get her statement on record, then we'll move her to a safe location until we're ready to make arrests. How long will that take? With her testimony, days, maybe a week. We've been building the environmental case. But the corruption charges, the murder investigation of your mother, we needed an inside witness. Mrs. Kern can give us that. At 2 p.m. exactly, Vivian Kern walked into the library. She looked different than she had in the BMW that first day. No makeup, hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a plain jacket. Like she was trying to disappear. She was carrying a briefcase. I met her at the entrance. Mrs. Kern, please, call me Vivian. We went upstairs. Agent Blackwell introduced herself and the other agents, explained how the interview would work, what kind of protection they could offer. Vivian set the briefcase on the table. Before we start, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this to hurt Thaddeus. I'm doing this because I can't let anyone else die the way my daughter died. We understand, Blackwell said gently. Whenever you're ready. Vivian opened the briefcase. Inside were files, bank records, emails, recorded phone calls, 23 years of evidence. I started keeping these after Emily died, she said. At first I told myself it was just good record keeping, but really I think I knew, even then. I just couldn't admit it. She pulled out a folder. These are the payments to Judge Harrison, the one who signed the restraining order against Miss Ashford's grandmother. $30,000. Transferred the day after Rosalind Ashford tried to file for custody. Another folder. EPA officials. $280,000 total over 8 years. Every payment made right before a major inspection. Another. Sheriff Wade. $20,000 a year since 1997, plus bonuses when he needs to make problems go away. She kept pulling out folders. The evidence mounted. Irrefutable, documented in Thaddeus Kern's own records, and then she pulled out the last folder. This is about Clementine Ashford, Miss Ashford's mother. She looked at me. Her eyes were full of pain. I'm so sorry. I knew about this. I knew what he did, and I said nothing. She opened the folder. Inside were emails between Thaddeus Kern and a man named Marcus Doyle, dated February 2001. The emails were coded, careful. But the meaning was clear. The problem on Route 60 needs to be handled, permanently. Understood. Accident robbery. Accident. Make it clean. The final email was dated February 14th, 2001, the day my mother died. It's done. No witnesses. Sheriff's report will say she lost control on the curve. I read those emails 3 times. My hands trembled so violently I almost dropped the papers. He ordered it. He ordered her death. Yes, Vivian said. Marcus Doyle was on Kern Mining's security payroll. He died in 2003. Motorcycle accident. But I always wondered if Thaddeus had him killed too, to cover his tracks. Agent Blackwell was reading through the documents. Her expression was intense. This is enough. This is more than enough. We can arrest him tonight. What about the others, I asked. Sheriff Wade, Judge Harrison, the EPA officials. We'll get them all, but Kern is the priority. Once he's in custody, the rest will fall. She pulled out her phone, started making calls, coordinating with other agents, getting arrest warrants expedited. While she worked, I sat with Vivian. Thank you, I said, for doing this, for being brave enough. I'm not brave. I'm 20 years too late. If I'd spoken up when Emily died, maybe all those other people would still be alive. You're speaking up now. That's what matters. 2 hours later, Agent Blackwell hung up. We have warrants. Teams are moving into position now. Kern will be arrested at his home at 6 p.m. Wade and Harrison at the same time. We'll have them all in custody before they can coordinate a response. She looked at me. You should be there. At Kern's arrest. You've earned that. We drove in a convoy, 5 FBI vehicles, heading back to Hinton. The sun was setting as we pulled up to the Kern estate. Big house on a hill overlooking the valley. The kind of place built with money earned from other people's suffering. Agents surrounded the house, blocked the exits. Blackwell knocked on the door. Thaddeus Kern answered. He saw the badges, saw the agents, and for just a second his carefully controlled expression cracked. Fear. Real fear. Thaddeus Kern, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, environmental crimes, bribery of federal officials, and racketeering. You have the right to remain silent. This is harassment, Kern interrupted. I'll have your badge. I'll have all your badges. Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are, Blackwell said calmly. That's why you're being arrested. They put him in handcuffs, led him to one of the vehicles. As he passed me, he stopped. This isn't over, he said quietly. I have lawyers, resources, connections. I'll be out in 24 hours, and when I am, you'll wish you'd taken my offer and left town. You killed my mother. You stole 16 years from my grandmother. You murdered 47 people. This is over. You just don't know it yet. They put him in the car, drove him away, and I stood there in his driveway watching his taillights disappear, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The news broke the next morning. Patricia Reeves's article was front page of the Charleston Gazette. Mining executive arrested in environmental crimes and murder for hire scheme. FBI alleges 2-decade cover-up, 47 deaths linked to contamination. The story went statewide by noon, national by evening. News trucks descended on Hinton. Reporters wanted to interview me. The FBI said no. I was a material witness. I couldn't talk to the press until after the trial. But they did release a statement about my grandmother, about her 16 years of investigation, about how her evidence had cracked open one of the largest environmental crime cases in federal history. Rosalind Ashford spent nearly 2 decades documenting these crimes. Her granddaughter brought that evidence to the FBI, leading to yesterday's arrests. This case shows the importance of citizens who refuse to be silenced. I read that statement sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table, the same table where I'd first read her letters, where I'd first understood how much she'd loved me. We did it, Grandma, I whispered. We got him. The trial took 8 months. Thaddeus Kern's lawyers tried everything. Challenged the evidence, claimed the documents were forged, attacked my grandmother's credibility. But they couldn't refute Vivian's testimony, couldn't explain away the emails ordering my mother's death, couldn't deny the financial records showing bribes. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Thaddeus Kern received 25 years in federal prison. At his age, it was effectively a life sentence. Judge Harrison and Sheriff Wade had taken plea deals. Both testified against Kern in exchange for reduced sentences. Harrison was disbarred and received 5 years. Wade got 8 years for obstruction of justice and accepting bribes. The EPA officials were fired and faced federal charges of their own. Kern mining was shut down, the property seized. A federal cleanup began that would take years, and the families, all 47 of them, received a settlement. $2.3 million total. Not enough to bring anyone back, but enough to acknowledge that what happened to them mattered. I sat in the courtroom when they read the verdict, surrounded by those families, people who'd waited years for justice. When the judge announced guilty, the room erupted, people crying, hugging, some just sitting in stunned silence. Linda Morrison grabbed my hand. We did it. After all these years, we actually did it. My grandmother did it. I just finished what she started. No, you did what she couldn't. You made them listen. You made them care. Rose would be so proud. I visited my grandmother's grave that evening. Someone had left flowers, fresh ones. I recognized Bertie's handwriting on the card. Justice at last. Rest easy, Rose. I sat down on the grass, pulled out one of my grandmother's letters. Number 143, written when I was 12. My dearest Nola, today you're 12, becoming a young woman. I wonder what you look like, what you're interested in. Do you like to read? I did at your age. Do you like the outdoors? There's so much beautiful land here waiting for you to explore. I've been fighting for 7 years now to reach you. Some days I want to give up. The lawyers tell me I'll never win. The social workers say I'm wasting my time, but then I think about you growing up without family, without knowing you're loved, and I can't stop. I'll never stop, sweetheart. Even if these letters never reach you, even if I die before we meet, I want you to know that somewhere in this world, someone loves you completely. Someone thinks you're wonderful. Someone fights for you every day. That someone is me. Love always, Grandma Rose. I folded the letter carefully, put it back with the others. I know now, Grandma. I know you loved me. I know you fought, and I promise I'll keep fighting too, for this land, for this town, for everyone Kern hurt. I stood up, looked out over the valley, my valley now, 160 acres of land that had been in my family for 3 generations. Kern mining was gone. The cleanup would take years, but the poisoning had stopped. The water was being treated. The land was healing. Caleb had started helping me fix up the farm. We'd rebuilt the barn, planted a garden, started making plans. He'd asked me out to dinner the week before. Nothing fancy, just the diner that had reopened in a new location. Bertie cooking. People I'd known for 8 months who felt like family. It wasn't romance, not yet, but it was possibility. The chance that maybe someday I could build something here, something lasting. I'd enrolled in community college, environmental science. The FBI had offered to pay for it, said they wanted to hire me as a consultant when I graduated, someone who understood how corporations covered up environmental crimes. I'd said yes. The museum was almost ready to open, the Edward Pierce Railcar Museum and Environmental Justice Center. We'd excavated Car 734, restored it, moved it to a location on my property where people could visit. Inside, my grandmother's 247 letters were displayed in glass cases. Each one a testament to love that refused to die, to a fight that lasted 16 years, a reminder that one person armed with nothing but truth and determination could change everything. The opening was scheduled for next month. We'd already had 50 families reach out, other towns, other cases of corporate poisoning, other grandmothers fighting for grandchildren they couldn't reach. We want to tell our stories too, they said. We want someone to listen. And we would listen. We'd document. We'd help them build cases. We'd connect them with the FBI, with journalists, with lawyers who worked pro bono. We'd turn my grandmother's fight into a movement. On my way home, I stopped at one more grave, my mother's. The headstone was the same, but someone had added a new plaque below it. Clementine Ashford, 1972-2001. She asked questions, she sought truth, she will not be forgotten. Agent Blackwell had arranged for it. A small gesture, but it mattered. "Hi, Mom," I said. "I wish I remembered you better. I was so young when you disappeared, when they killed you." I sat down. "But I know what you were trying to do. You were trying to protect people, to stop Kern before more people died, and it cost you everything." The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. I finished it. "What you started, what Grandma continued. Kern's in prison 25 years. He'll die there. And the mine is closed. The water's being cleaned. People are getting justice." I touched the headstone. "I hope you can rest now, both of you. I hope wherever you are, you know that it wasn't for nothing. Your fight mattered. Your evidence saved lives, and I'm going to make sure everyone remembers." I stood to leave, noticed something tucked under the flowers. An envelope, my name on it, in handwriting I didn't recognize. I opened it. Inside was a short note. "Dear Miss Ashford, my name is Margaret Sullivan. I'm Thaddeus Kern's sister. We've never met. I left Hinton 40 years ago and never looked back. I've followed your case in the news, read about what my brother did, the people he killed, the lives he destroyed. I'm writing to say I'm sorry that my family caused so much pain. Sorry that I didn't speak up sooner. I suspected for years that something was wrong. But I was afraid, and that fear made me complicit. Your grandmother was brave. You're brave. And because of your bravery, maybe Hinton can heal. I've established a scholarship fund, $500, $1,000. For Hinton students studying environmental science or law, students who want to fight for their communities, who want to make sure this never happens again. It's not enough. Nothing can undo what Thaddeus did, but maybe it's a start. Thank you for your courage. Margaret Sullivan." I read the note twice, then I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. Even in the darkest stories, there was light. People who chose differently, who tried to make things right. That night I wrote my own letter. Not to my grandmother this time, to her. "Dear Grandma Rose, I'm sitting at your kitchen table, the one where you probably wrote all those letters to me, where you documented evidence, where you planned your fight. It's mine now, this table, this house, this land, all of it. But more than that, I have your legacy, your determination, your refusal to give up. You spent 16 years writing to a granddaughter who couldn't write back, loving someone you couldn't reach, fighting a fight you thought you'd lost. But you didn't lose, Grandma. You won. Kern is in prison, the mine is closed, 47 families have justice, and your letters, all 247 of them, are going to be seen by thousands of people. They're going to inspire others to fight, to document, to never give up. You taught me that love isn't about presence. It's about perseverance. You loved me for 16 years without ever holding me, without ever hearing me call you Grandma. And that love was powerful enough to change everything. I'm home now, in the house you left me, on the land you protected, living the life you wanted for me. And every day I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to fight the way you fought, love the way you loved, persist the way you persisted, because that's what Ashford women do. We don't give up. Thank you for never giving up on me. I love you, Grandma. I always will. Your granddaughter, Magnolia." I folded the letter, put it in an envelope, sealed it. Tomorrow I'd take it to the cemetery, place it on her grave with the others. But tonight I sat in the farmhouse my great-grandfather built, in the chair where my grandmother spent 16 years writing letters that came back unopened. And I finally understood. Home wasn't a place you'd been. It was a place you were meant to be. 247 letters had brought me here. 16 years of a grandmother's love had built this sanctuary. And now it was mine to protect, to share, to pass on, just like Grandma Rose had done for me. The fight wasn't over. There would be more corporations, more cover-ups, more families who needed someone to listen. But I was ready, because I was Rosalind Ashford's granddaughter, and we didn't give up, ever.